Today we meet Chris Rennoldson as he shares his journey from a finance career to becoming co-founder in Pasta Evangelists, a thriving food business with a mission to serve the very best pasta and sauces across the UK. With a career pivot at 40, he discusses the importance of following your passion, the opportunities for growth presented during COVID-19, and the strategic decisions that led to the brand's growth. Chris emphasises the significance of customer feedback in menu development and the commitment to sourcing authentic ingredients. He explains how the team have seen investment and finance as a true enabler for controlled growth, not something that an entrepreneur should fear. We also surprisingly find out their best-selling dishes, but you're going to have to listen to hear. I hope you enjoy. Good morning, Chris. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Steve. Thank you very much for having me.
Right, exciting times for this. We're talking about food. We're recording just before lunchtime. As I've just declared to you, I've now got a fetish about eating my own body weight in pasta, as normal, but yeah.
It's what I do at least once or twice a week.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's good for you, isn't it? It must be.
The Italians are very healthy and live very long.
There we go. Fact. That is empirical evidence number one shared on the podcast. So look, Chris, we kick off this podcast where you are currently obviously co-founder and either COO, I found some bits, and VP strategy and analytics others. But basically you are one of the leaders of Pasta Evangelists. And so it'd be wonderful if you could share with our guests how you've got here.
Yeah, let me talk a bit about the life journey to get here, because it's definitely been that. So my career 1.0, if you want to put it that way, was in finance and in the city of London. Literally, well, we are actually still strictly in the city in our office here in Barbican at the moment. So I've moved a long way in career, but physically I'm about a mile away from where I...
It's your comfort zone there still.
Yeah, exactly. I still love the area and the energy and the buzz around here, but I see it from a different angle. So I graduated in consultancy, so my grounding was around analytics, data, putting ideas down in a very rigorous framework in PowerPoint slides. I spent the largest time of my time in finance working for the London Stock Exchange Group, which is the business that runs the computer system that is the market. Okay. So they're not actually trading, but you're facilitating all that. That was a fantastic time, really energetic, really intellectually challenging. Whenever I sat down at a dinner party to explain what I did, people weren't that interested in talking to Chris. Really.
Oh shit, I've got Chris.
I run an equities dark trading platform. Have I got you hooked? It's great to be involved in during the day, but not that, and your passions behind it. Yeah, I left the stock exchange, a couple of other roles, didn't quite work out. I actually was advised to take some time out at a point after a role that just back in consulting that hadn't really worked out for me. I hired a coach to help me think about what I should do next at 40. Some people would call it a midlife crisis if they were being more direct or spiteful. And the advice I got from the coach and from others around that I sought counsel from was, how about make your hobby your career? Don't see your pursuits outside work and work as two different things. I got two hobbies, rugby and food. I was 40. I wasn't good enough anyway. I wasn't going to become professional rugby player.
Yeah, unfortunately, the rugby ship had sailed, hadn't it, somewhat at 40?
It sailed at 7 or 8 for me when I was scoring the tries in mini rugby, let alone at 40. So food is what I pursue. So food is what I'd used in the city. I've cooked since I was 12. Mum was at work. I had long school holidays. She said, if you think I'm coming back and cooking for the family while you're just sitting here all day, you're another thing coming. You start cooking, mate. So I started at 12 learning to cook for the family there. And as I started living by myself, cooking, I talked about that analytical piece. I love the city because of the analytical challenge. Cooking for me, as I worked in the city and settled into regular hours rather than crazy hours of the city and was cooking for myself, became my creative outlet at the end of the day.
Okay.
Every day, I get the tube home, stock off in the supermarket, start thinking about what do I feel like eating today, engaging with the food in front of me, and then going home and cooking it. So it's that release from the day when you've been staring at spreadsheets, trading PowerPoint slides, negotiating with people. And it's also, for somebody who's very much the left brain guy, the numbers guy at work, it's also a creative outlet. I'm trying to do something. So that's what food became to me through my 20s and 30s. And then as we settled down and social life became in rather than out, in organizing dinner parties and cooking for dinner parties. So it became a huge social thing for me. So that's how my food passion developed.
Yeah.
So then I was, set the challenge of, you know what, Chris, why don't you make food your career? I said, well, do you know what? I might as well give that a go. Seems as good an idea as any. So the way I pursued that as a career was I decided to go to Leith's Cookery School in London full time as a student. That's the competitor of Cordon Bleu, which is probably a more
Right.
recognised name
Yeah.
in London. It was set up by Prue Leith, who many people will know from Bake Off. And so I studied as a student of cooking there as a full time as a student for an academic year.
And it wasn't a particular genre or type of cooking. It was everything, was it?
It's covering all cooking. The way they do it is covering all cooking. They have people who are 18 to 20 just out of school or uni, probably more in that age bracket, but there were a good cohort of 15 of us at the more 40 plus bracket, either looking at career change or even some just an early retirement gift to self as well, to really indulge your cooking passion. For me, that was, can I turn this hobby into my 5 days a week plus homework, 6-7 days a week job, even though it was studying? Can I and I treat it then beyond that a bit like an MBA. Can I use that environment to find ideas about what will I do with that afterwards? Maybe there's 100 other students on the course with me. I'll find somebody like-minded to partner with.
Find that kindred spirit. Yeah.
I tick the box about, I love doing this every day. I love doing my old job every day.
Can I ask, how was it going back to the discipline of being a student, and that rigor again?
The most amazing thing for me, because I am very studious, and passing exams was a special skill I had in teenage and 20s. So I didn't think that bit was going to be too problem. But sitting down in a lecture theatre for 2.5 hours to listen to them all, when it's been literally 20 years since you last did that, wow, that was a really tiring thing. That was more tiring than I've got to spend 3 hours on my feet in the kitchen the other half of the day doing the actual cooking. It was the learning bit and adapting again to that, despite that being what I was comfortable and confident in, was really surprising. How draining that was. So that was really a really good experience. You had to be. What I advise people, they asked me at the graduation party, one of the teachers asked me, would you recommend the course to others? I said, the thing about going back to school is you need to be prepared to be treated a bit like a school kid again. It was more like a school kid than a university. Again, like the food industry has that, you need to do it this way.
I suppose, it's a very hierarchical setup, isn't it?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So I think the food industry has quite a lot of that. I said I would, as long as they were as passionate about food as me, because that passion carries you through being basically told off by a 25-year-old who's a lot better at this. I know I haven't done it right or haven't done it well, but you've really got to care, really got to be taking somebody to be able to take that and keep coming back and bouncing back. So that was the way I saw it. But for me, it was definitely the right thing to do, because it really kindled that passion, that belief. So I came out, ticked the food is the thing for me, 5-7 days a week. I ticked here's a couple of ideas of what I'm going to do with it. I definitely decided I wasn't going to become a commis chef in the London restaurant scene at 40 with a family. That's not that's not the
Doesn't go
right
down that
scene.
well, that does it? Yeah.
So I needed to find a way of allying all my commercial expertise with this new passion. So I tried a couple of ideas. I didn't find directly, at least, here's the guy from Leith I'm going to do this with. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It's green light to carry on. So I tried a couple of ideas out of Leith of my own, starting up my own ideas. One was to do cooking, teach science through cooking. So everything that goes on in a kitchen science. I'm a scientist by academic training. It's all chemistry, physics, biology, what's going on into those products that you're using and into the change you're creating. So I tried seeing if there was a business opportunity in that and bringing my science background rather than my commercial background to it. But that didn't quite work out. But I was thrown into teaching after school clubs for science, about all sorts of stuff. Getting my own. The conclusion was I've got my own family. So starting off a business is about childcare is probably a bit too close to the bone. Much as my family is my passion, other people's perhaps less so.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I looked into a cafe business with a guy as well. Probably had a lucky escape. We got as far as making an offer on a site on that. Very competitive. It would have been building from the ground up from the restaurant outwards. So you'd have been doing all the antisocial hours and everything else. And then, of course, even if against that difficult backdrop, we'd have made a success of it, COVID would have hit and killed our business overnight. So that was a real lucky escape. At that point, my wife said to me, it's been 2 years. I think you probably ought to find something where you're going to get paid some money at this point.
Did she use the word Christopher as well? Just so she knew you were serious?
That one's reserved for my mother, fortunately. Right. That's what I get for being in trouble with her, not my wife.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went and contracted for a food delivery firm. It was then called City Pantry. It's now called Just Eat for Business. It's part of Just Eat. So they exited Just Eat and did brilliantly. And I was on a 6-month contract for them, working on building their restaurant network in London. And then the stars aligned. 2 days before the end of that contract, I was introduced to this guy who had this idea for a pasta business, Alessandro. We met Wednesday night in WeWork just up the road here in Old Street, hit it off. And he said, what are you doing next Thursday? Fortunately, literally, I did not have a plan next Thursday. But we were in Leytonstone in northeast London sending out pasta meals that Thursday. That's now, almost 9 years ago. And here we are with 50 kitchens, 7 restaurants, 400 employees, running a £40 million business.
Nice. I like the way you did the last bit. So it's interesting. So you met Alessandro, and then the other founder was Finn, wasn't he? That you guys set it up. Did you have a passion for Italian food, or has that come as a collective?
I think that's come as a collective. Alessandro is half Italian.
So I hope so with a name like that. Yeah.
He'd had the vision, obviously the connection culturally with pasta, and the vision. The mission of the business is to be the authority in fresh pasta and sauces. So the problem we're solving, page 2 or 3 of the pitch deck at the start, is food. People are looking for better food and drink experiences. And in so many of these food and drink, we called them verticals in a very consulting. He was originally an investment banker as well. I
can say all your backgrounds are quite similar to say you're all now a creative service. Yeah.
Right. We said, well, you see all these places where this premiumization has occurred: gin, craft ale, chocolate, and just so on and so across so many different foods and drinks. Yet the most consumed food in the whole world, pasta, is pasta or rice. I think maybe rice is more, but pasta's right up there. Pasta and noodles. None of that has happened. There's no brand, and beyond that, there's also not the preeminent brand, even in the standard offer, in the way that you have in restaurants, a Domino's or a Pizza Hut or a Pizza Express.
Yeah.
Uh, in pizza, the white space and the obviousness of the opportunities. Just well, wow, of course that's
Yeah.
a massive opportunity. So that's why we coalesce specifically around pasta. And the very initial idea, the mission has changed in one way since we started. So this has been really a constant, except for this very early change. Initially, it was the authority in fresh pasta. The observation was this stuff in the supermarkets that calls itself fresh pasta. It's very industrialized, very mass produced. It can be so much better. We then thought, well, you can't really just sell pasta. You see, people eat pasta and sauce. We then looked at the sauces that are available, and that makes the pasta look like Michelin star food, right? It's a really sad place to be honest, especially in UK supermarkets, much less so in Europe. If you walk up and down the ambient sauce aisle,
Yeah.
it's not a place to fill a foodie with joy. So we adapted the mission at that point and said fresh pasta and sauces, because we're bringing a meal together, and that's the opportunity, and that is still our mission statement today. So that's quite important, that within lots
Because
of
the
change
marriage of those two
about,
areas is the uniqueness
that's
of.
been very
Yeah.
consistent, and it's helped us even as we change path and delivery to say, oh, it keeps you centered and grounded on that mission. Are we delivering? So we really ask two questions whenever we look at a business opportunity. One, can we deliver that customer promise? Whether it is eating in our Harrods pasta bar, which is the most premium thing we do in our business, taking the delivery off through Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, or our own direct app, as you're planning on your lunch now.
Yeah.
Buying, as we started one of our recipe kits to cook at home, or now coming into one of our high street restaurants. What we're thinking about is, can we deliver on that promise of the authority in fresh pasta and sauce? And as a startup, not can it be profitable, but is there a path to
Yeah.
scale and profitability? That's what we've always asked ourselves about any opportunity. So we started the business as a recipe kit, cook at home business. The reason we did that wasn't because we had a great passion for the cook at home meal kit business. It's just, it was an evolving, fashionable market, so an easy conversation to have with investors. It was at the point where Blue Apron was going quite mad in the US, HelloFresh was expanding very fast, Gusto had got itself going in the UK. So there was a real recipe kit market going on. On the back of that, there was a really, really good logistics set up in the UK for delivering chilled food. I was
Right.
really impressed when we started looking at that, at all of the major courier firms that ship packages to all of us every day. They're all really well set up specifically to handle fresh goods, which is tough, right? Because I can't have my Pasta Evangelist box delayed by a day. Literally, it's very
Yeah.
sad. If that
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
it has to
Gone.
go in the bin.
Yeah.
It has to go in the bin because it's chilled. So you can't rely on the ice pack for longer than a day. And so the couriers had changed their business model on the back of HelloFresh and Gusto's needs to
Right. Okay.
adapt to. We kind of rode in on the back of, we've got great logistics in this country anyway, because we're massive adopters of online shopping and we're quite a small, densely populated country. HelloFresh and Gusto had come in and developed with them a great chilled food delivery service that really focused on really high due date delivery. So what we said is, well, we can set up a website on Shopify. We've got a delivery service. We can find a chef to help cook meals for us, and we'll focus on building a brand, designing the recipes, and building the customer base. And
And
that's,
was that, sorry, Chris, was that when you first met Alessandro, was that the idea of the business, or was it the idea of the business, we want to get the best pasta in the world and sauces to people, and then that happened to be your first route to market, which
I think Alessandro we were looking at the recipe kit idea.
right, okay.
We
So
had that
it's
first
interesting, isn't it?
fulfillment idea
Because
at the
your
time.
natural thing normally we think, right, we've got to open a restaurant. We've got to, people have got to come and see it and have all the theatre. And as you alluded to, even with the cafe idea, that's big capital investment and outlay and risk when you don't yet know whether the theory sounds great, but are people going to want to pay a little bit more for a quality product that they probably don't even know they can have? It's like you've got your dried pasta in your cupboard that's a staple for kids' tea when they get home from sport. And
Right. And
it's not, is it?
and the skills you need to open a restaurant business and run a restaurant, properly. If you think about the skills we have in our business now, the site search team, the fit out team, operational management that understand how to manage hospitality staff, all those staff, the supply chain, the cooking, the food safety around that, the technology that at least nowadays you have to facilitate. It's an enormous undertaking compared with, I'll set up a website, get a co-packer who can produce this stuff for me, and I'll build a customer base and a brand, give them to DHL, DPD, Yodel, and they'll take them off and deliver to the customer. The customer can do the cooking, cooking for us. So the reason was it was the quick, lower investment way to market, and also that both spoke to our skills as commercial people with a massive passion for food. That's probably a big risk. I think there's a lot of food businesses that get started with people who are not just passionate about food, but also fantastic chefs, because the two are very close aligned. And that's a great opportunity. And obviously amazing here in London. Restaurant and chefs seem hugely talented. But if you're then starting as a business, that tends to lead you to, I think, what most business school lecturers would tell you is mistake number one, which is you create a product and then look for a market.
Yeah.
Because we were more business minded and we didn't want to become hands-on cooks, we said, well, somebody else is going to do that. We're going to create a market and demand, and we'll lead the product to meet that. I think that's actually that's a really winning start for us. We focus on what we could be good at. We let other people do what we didn't want to spend our time on. We didn't have to make major investments in kitchens or in restaurants and so on.
I'm assuming you needed some form of kitchen, did you, to obviously produce and prepare the food that you sent
so
out?
exactly. So we literally hired. So we had our next door neighbours, as we started earlier, were doing food delivery, and we hired into this emerging kind of dark kitchen or cloud kitchen space. We hired new kitchen units that have been fitted out by some of the companies doing that, but rather than catering or sending out hot delivery food, which is what our neighbours were doing, we were packing recipe kit meals, but in a clean, safe food planned environment. Exactly that. So it was a very different business model from our neighbours, but that worked well for us.
Took a lot of you were both learning from each other. So that was 2016, 2017 when that kicked off, wasn't it? So how did that grow then? Because you glossed over that bit to where you are now.
Yeah, we leapt quite a bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that really solidified about the partnership with Alessandro for me is I remember speaking, my brother-in-law, my brother-in-law was actually the link. So Alessandro rocked up to my brother and sister-in-law's flat on a Sunday night with his pitch deck. They both work in the city, so he was looking for seed investors.
So he's looking for that investment, right?
My brother-in-law indeed was one of our seed investors. So my brother-in-law said to me when early on, he said, "This guy's definitely going to be able to raise the money. This guy can definitely sell the story. He's credible. He's got the classic entrepreneur journey of having tried and failed once, and he's got back up and going to have another go." So for me, I got along with him. I agree with the idea that the thing I definitely didn't have experience doing of going out, running that investment process, he could handle. So I knew we were going to be able to get started with confidence. So that really locked in. So we raised money to get us started, with the focus on that money being around spending in marketing and building a very, very small, lean team at the time, from initially private investors and then from some small institutional investors, to build the Recipe Kits business. So following the same model as other subscription services, whether they're in chocolates, flowers, or or recipe kits. But we also had this view, importantly, of, again, this mission is about the authority of fresh pasta and sauces, not the leading pasta recipe kit business. So we always wanted to try other channels and experiment and find the right path to market for our product. So the first big move away from just recipe kits was when we got emailed by Harrods saying to chef@pastaevangelists.com, I'm in charge of the project to invite concessionaires into our revamped food hall. Would you be interested in coming and talking about partnership?
Yeah,
So
I'll think about it.
we went. We were very, very interested. What an amazing opportunity, literally, to partner with the most famous retailer and the most famous store in the whole world. So we were very, very interested, and we managed to agree terms on which we became one of 4 concessions in the Harrods Fresh Market Hall, which was about 2018 that we started there. So that was our first branch out. That then unlocked getting a listing on Ocado, because our Ocado buyer that we've been talking to a lot and was being very resistant, saying, prove it to me, guys, prove it to me. He went to the counter at Harrods and saw the products in a curated, displayed way, ate the cooked product within there with the storytelling. And he said, now I get it.
Brilliant.
And so that opened the door to then say, we don't just sell the recipe kits direct from our website, but we also sell them through Ocado. So suddenly you've got 3 channels that you're running this business through rather than one. So that took us up to about COVID.
So that was still not your own product. That was still kits, wasn't it?
This is still correct. And we talked about when is the moment to start cooking ourselves and making the product ourselves. We were probably on the verge of finding. Well, we actually moved in to do the packing in a venue which could have allowed us to start on that. It was big enough to organise a kitchen to allow us to do that. And then literally COVID hit. So suddenly we actually removed the office. People couldn't come in anyway, and doubled the size of the potential kitchen in there in order to cope with just that whole packing exercise over COVID. We literally grew 5-fold overnight. People were placing orders for 250 quid's worth of fresh lasagna. It was a manic time whilst you looked out on the streets and it was literally empty, tumbleweed. I would be on the phone, a bit like a market trader. 8 o'clock, I'd get on the phone, trying to source insulation, ice packs, boxes, negotiate with my carriers about how much space I had in trailers. That whole logistics. We went from, we've got everything planned out. I've got 5 weeks of stock of everything sitting in the warehouse to, that's about 5 days of stuff, and we got no idea what's going to happen on Saturday or Sunday. So that was a massive moment of growth for us. What I always remind our team whenever anybody talks about it being luck, though, is we got to that position in 4 years. So we traded for 4 years at this point. So yes, it helped the business, but we'd developed a really credible brand and a really credible set of investors backing us, and a team to deliver that up to that point. And we also were really bold in COVID. You remember other firms and supermarkets, it was all about, delivery slots full. We said, that is not happening. Alex Finn and I had a call early on, said that we are not doing that. We're not putting the doors down. We have to keep open, even if the next delivery slot is in 8 days' time, 10 days' time, because if somebody got ahead of you and ordered 25 lasagnas, we said we are going to stay open and we're going to maximize this both as a food provider when people need and want it, and also nakedly the commercial opportunity for us. So it was really hard work, but I'd rather been doing that than furloughed. It was really crazy time.
I've luckily met a lot of people now on the podcast, and people fall into 2 camps, where one was they're nearly embarrassed to say how good COVID was for them, which is a really And then others that, like you say, that had chains of restaurants or cafes that literally they went the other way. Now, luckily, they've all survived. Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it, that overnight success, 4 years in the making.
Quite exactly.
is
And they actually, COVID now, if we look back, whilst at the time it felt like that was the transformational moment for the recipe kit business, actually what it was more important for was our hot delivery business, because we'd also 2 months before COVID had our strategy away day as a leadership group, and we committed at that point. We tried selling the recipe kits through Deliveroo and Uber Eats. It's again, we're looking for channels where we can grow and make a
where
customer
they've
profit.
got the
These
customer.
huge channels that are themselves exploding. But recipe kits is not the right product. When I'm on Deliveroo or Uber or Just Eat, I'm hungry. I want food. I don't want you to give me something that I then have to cook.
The whole idea is I'm already in front of the TV with my feet up, aren't I? Yeah.
Exactly. So that didn't work. So and then the next version is, well, we said, well, we've got this kitchen that we were talking about. It's busy all day with people packing food, but then it's empty at 5 o'clock at night. How about we open an evening delivery restaurant, have somebody set up an induction hob there, and somebody can cook meals and send them out. But being open part-time is not committing yourself to that. So that didn't work either. And if the main business overran, the guy had to wait to start. So yeah, it doesn't work. So we committed, we're going to find our first delivery restaurant. And also I gave up an intern who was doing a brilliant job for me around logistics, and said, we'll get Lawrence to actually run this and build this business and dedicate somebody within our small team to it. And we said, we need to give this a proper go. So we opened our first delivery kitchen in Clapham in the start of March 2020. So that clearly stays out. But again, strategically, we'd made the right decision to position us. The real, I think, luck that we got, ironically, out of COVID is our Harrods team that I spoke on were unfortunately furloughed because Harrods closed. But that gave us, because we just opened this delivery kitchen, rather than having to work out from scratch how we're even going to do this with a new team, our Harrods team, our Harrods manager, brilliant lady, came across, said, well, I know how to do all this. I don't want to be furloughed. I'll come and do this instead for you. So she set up and ran our first delivery kitchen for us. So that, I would say, was a bit of a stroke of good fortune out of all the machinations of COVID, because it meant that we'd made the strategic commitment to do this, but we didn't then have to start on. We avoided so many mistakes. We had somebody who knew the food, knew how to cook it all, knew how to run a kitchen, came in and managed and ran our first kitchen for us. So by the end of 2020, we had 7 of these things.
So it might be important, just quickly explain, Chris, what you, because these aren't like maybe the old or the classic takeaway where it's got a shop front that people go in. This is literally just a kitchen that takes an order and then the guy comes and picks it up.
Exactly. People have called them dark. They often have pretty sinister sounding names. That's why I use delivery kitchen. It says what they do, but it's not. Dark kitchen or ghost kitchen is a US term. Even cloud kitchen. What is it? Is it floating somewhere? So it just does delivery, exactly that. And they're often in alongside that rise of delivery, there's been a rise in firms that provide kitchens for us. So they're often in railway arches that have been fitted out with serious kitchens, or in warehouses as well. So we grew the delivery business through that. Again, rather than not needing all those skills I talked about to open restaurants, of site finding, the level of investment, the team, they're much simpler to run, much closer to the operation we were already used to. We used all the same food and so on, went into the delivery kitchens as goes into Harrods, as goes into the recipe kits. It was all the same raw material. And so it was just, again, a little bit lower risk way of getting into this market, but massively expanding the remit of the business, because suddenly you're in hot food delivery, not in a slightly niche recipe kit.
Yeah. No. And so that's where you then saw the growth, didn't you, by expanding that delivery kitchen model?
Quite. So they're now going down as we turn into restaurants, but we've now got 43. At peak, we had 48 delivery kitchens from Bournemouth up to Glasgow is the geographical
That's
extent we've
decent
got.
stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Covers a pretty large proportion of the UK population. The rest of them can still buy the recipe kits and cook it
Yeah.
at
So
home as well.
you can get the product, like you say, through that, and then, and as you alluded to there, you've started to convert some of these into actual restaurants now. Is it
Yeah, so this
eight
is
or nine
we
you have
hope
at the moment?
the final stage of the strategy. Now we're not up for pivoting again, but I think that the delivery model really worked well and was really pretty, strong growth and strong profitability. The 2021, 22. But what we found with the delivery only, and it has some really great things. Like it really is very simple, a bit like the entry into recipe kits. We get one of these kitchens, somebody's fitted it all out for us, so we haven't got effort on fit out and cost. You can get them for relatively short leases, so you're not making massive commitments, and you have no front of house to worry about. So you can run it with a really lean team. You can also achieve fantastic performance on these marketplaces in speed because your whole focus is on one line of fulfilling the orders as they come out of that printer. You haven't got what most restaurants have, which is I've got front of house to worry about. And actually, because they're in front of me and the customer there, they'll probably end up coming first rather than
Yeah.
the delivery customer. So it really was working well. But what we hit is a couple of things like, firstly, we've really capped out at almost 50. That what that relies on is because we're not building our own brand with our own high street presence, we're very dependent on distribution through Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat for that business. Now, those marketplaces bring together demand and supply. That's what a marketplace is, right? So it's bringing together young professionals, students, young families, people, particularly workers who work kind of particular hours late at night. So it's bringing together that group of demand with a whole range of dining options. So I can log on now from Barbican and I'll have, I don't know, 150 different places that I can eat lunch. If I log on from Harpenden, just north of St Albans, where my parents live, well, I don't know whether I think they do there because I think we've delivered from our St Albans kitchen up to Harpenden, but I'm only going to see
Yeah.
things on the high street that I already know. The marketplace service doesn't really work. There's not the variation of supply, and there's not the huge demand, students, professionals, so on, that really drive these things. It works in big cities, in big student towns. That's where it works well because that's where you've got that true marketplace, and we again can come in on somebody who's created that and say we'll be part of that, and we'll introduce a premium pasta option into that. No one, which is really compelling. So we kind of reached the limit of where we could grow on that. So we had to look, okay, what do? We need to keep growing. We really believe in this brand and in more people eating our wonderful pasta. And so indeed, that's where you say, well, still there's more food gets consumed by people going in and sitting in and dining in restaurants. And it's the natural evolution for our brand. We spent so much time developing the food and the brand to again talk to the mission of being the authority in fresh pasta, and we're hidden in these kitchens tucked under railway arches or in warehouses. That's not what we believe in the vision for our brand. We're
Yeah.
very, very proud of what we've done. We want to be screaming about it, sitting on premier high street next to other really engaging, top quality food brands.
And especially, I suppose, with the Italian background about what food is, and it's to be shared and it's to be enjoyed as together with family and friends. It's like it's when you say it out loud, it's well, obviously that's where you get to, but it's not always obvious, is it? A journey, as we've talked about now with a business, it can be ups and downs and quick pivots and turnarounds. But so fabulous. So how many restaurants have you got now in the UK?
So we now have 7 restaurants. We'll have 10 by the end of the year.
Fantastic.
And we believe, as we shared in the press last week, our target is to have more than 100 UK restaurants. We're very confident that there's at least that demand.
Brilliant.
We're at the premium end of kind of very accessible dining. It's not 1,000, 1,000 upwards like there
Yeah.
are Domino's pizza units, but pasta. Sometimes we use the word democratic. It's not quite a bit. It's got universal appeal. There's very few people. Even now we are introducing non-gluten contained gnocchi, risotto in our, like I say, even for those that are gluten intolerant, they can still come to our restaurants, even though it's Pasta Evangelists. So really, anybody pretty much does eat. Families eat pasta, so it's just a very universal appeal. So the potential is very, very big for us. We've also on this journey built our own production. So our pasta feature, as we call it, which we moved into almost 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago to the day, bank holiday weekend, August 2 years ago. So we got to the point where, given the scale of the business, we're not in Italy, so there isn't fresh pasta production available in the marketplace.
Rolling down.
We reached a point where, both for the scale of the business, we needed to develop our own production capability. We also, it's very important about part of the brand is innovation and novelty. Not crazy off the chart stuff all the time. The classics are still what sells: carbonara, bolognese, beef lasagna. But it's really important to have that storytelling to give people who want to keep coming back something new. And that, when you're working with a third-party suppliers, that is a very difficult process. It's very involved because you've got your ideas talking to your chefs, talking to their chefs. So there's unnecessary extra people involved, which slows everything down and gets.
And probably with quite a few opinions in that world too.
Exactly that. And developing chefs for pasta are all Italian, and they're all very strongly opinionated, which is great, that passion. But you've got to counter it towards the commercial direction you want, of course. The other problem is, if you're with an outsource, a third party, there's got to be a commercial reason for them and them alone to see the benefit. And you know what, for us, we want to just try some things and see whether they generate some social media interest. We want to be prepared to say, try and fail. And that is the entrepreneurial story. That's what we were prepared to do from the start. That doesn't really work with a third party supplier. They've got to invest in the new products and all the testing. So they've got all that cost. Then they've got to buy in any new raw materials. They've got to go get a load of food safety product testing for any new products. Very involved. Whereas we turn around and say, we make an end-to-end business as a business decision to say, we want to have coloured gnocchi in our restaurants, literally being launched next week. So will they sell when they say, well, we think they definitely make a noise. Colour is everywhere. If I walk outside London, every A-frame outside every restaurant has got matcha coloured this, or this coloured fruit, these coloured donuts. It's everywhere. So we want to take part in that. Will coloured gnocchi take over from spaghetti and tagliatelle as top sellers? Maybe not, but they might have a real commercial chance. There's only one way of finding out, which is give it a go. What we'll definitely do is we'll definitely create a buzz, and our social marketing team will love talking about
you've
it.
Got a story,
and that in itself has huge value. So we're able to make these end-to-end decisions now. So there's the scale. We can make the pasta ourselves. Well, there's the pride, first off. I can genuinely say that pasta was made by our team, rather than, we were a bit worried. You asked me before we came on air, are there any questions you wouldn't want to ask? 3 years ago, I'd have probably said, don't ask me where the pasta is made or who makes the pasta, because we couldn't be evasive about it, but we didn't have a strong answer. Now it's ours, the recipe are ours, it's our team. As founders of the business, we're there in the pasta feature at least once a week. I attend every tasting we have because actually I love it. Not because I want to post it. I just enjoy it. All these ideas. This
you could share some dates on that, Chris, when the next I might be in town.
It's absolutely fantastic. I eat myself into a pasta coma every Thursday lunchtime. Just the amazing. Now, only 1 or 2 in 5 of what we taste is going to make it to market, but that's part of the adventure and the spirit and the culinary journey. We built our own pasta feature because we had to, because there wasn't enough pasta supply to meet our current needs, let alone our ambitions. Because we're really passionate about the product, so it felt like a big hole in our business not to do it, and we'd held it off for much longer than we planned. because of the changes in the needs of the business and the scale of the business. But the third thing is that's really important to us now that things have settled down in the pasta feature and we know what we're doing, we've now got a much more really fast-paced new product, new ideas, development pace going. And so every month we are putting new products into our restaurant, which is 3 times as fast as anybody else
Yeah,
does
that's you
it.
keep ahead.
We want to try a few things with the intention that some of them just won't work because the market is the ultimate
Yeah,
arbiter.
let's go. No, thank you. Yeah.
Going through committee of, oh, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. It just starts here. It stops. It closes things off. We're not interested in that. We want to shoot through, use our money safely, use it smartly, use our resources smartly. Clearly, there's lots of food safety that we have to involve in putting new products. There's still a big project around it, but we still just run it with the minimum number of people required, so we can do things quickly, efficiently, get them to market, try them out. If they don't work, yeah, it's not taking quite the risk that SpaceX are by putting experimental rockets up, which obviously costs tens of millions when all the viewers delight in them coming down. But it's a mini version of that attitude. I think they've completely changed the way people think about space travel. NASA organize it through safety, 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 safety. Quite rightly, obviously, when you're actually putting people in these things, but it takes a long time to get to, okay, we're going to make sure it's definitely going to go up and down before we try anything. It takes you a long time. A business comes and says, I'm going to do this completely differently. We'll try something and actually celebrate the failure because we get masses of data and learning. And we're almost in our mini version of that with the products we're trying out. Certainly very open to it, a tasting as a group amongst us, and then even putting them in our restaurants and letting our customers try them, and you
vote
tell
with their wallets.
Tell us which ones are the ones that win.
And so, to keep the authenticity of the product, where are you getting your ingredients from?
So this is a big and there's the authenticity, but also you've got to think about practical economic cost. And in my kids, I'm very worried about the planet that my kids are going to be inheriting. Also, the number of food miles you put on the food. So we've got a mix. It's really important with the authenticity that where the product really needs to be Italian, it's Italian. And sometimes that's the law. Now, you can't make them, do you? Unless it's in Calabria, because it's protected, or Parmesan and so on. So there's lots of so we get things like tomatoes and flour and cheeses from Italy. That's very Italian in our range, because that's really important that we use those products. On the other hand, milk, proteins we get from the UK, whether it's cost or just general environmental responsibility. That's a easy thing to do. One of the biggest benefits in our food, for us as a relatively small food supplier, is one of the bits of the journey I haven't talked about so far is the partnership with Barilla. So we sold Pasta Evangelists to Barilla, which is the biggest pasta company in the world, at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. So Barilla became a majority shareholder at that point. And when we were on a fundraising round when we first started that process with Barilla. And when we were looking at our options of, we go back down the road of another VC type funding, or do we go with the offer from Barilla? Just what Barilla offered, the industrial expertise, the alignment on kind of vision. Because Barilla is also, we're a founder business, still a founder-led business. Barilla is still owned by the family, by the 3 Barilla brothers. And so there was a real alignment there also of kind of mission and philosophy about involvement in a business. But building our own factory, finding the supplies for that, whether that's the machinery or indeed now the ingredients, we'd found a way to make it happen on our own, but the VC wouldn't have been much help with that.
Yeah.
The VC saying, I've got this LinkedIn contact, you know what, we're pretty good at we can find LinkedIn contacts ourselves. We're pretty good at that. But I've got the expert, the person who buys more pasta flour than anybody else in the world is sitting in bar, by definition. That makes more pasta
He's
than
got a bit of decent
in the
power in
world.
that world. Yeah.
So they've got expertise to advise us on all these things. And they run 29 factories. So while they're not fresh pasta factories, they understand principal factories. Some of them are sauces factories. They're not all just pasta factories. So that all those skills suddenly come to bear in making this really complex project work. So that was as we built and then launched the Pasta Feed Show, and then even now the food that we're buying in, we have a huge influence of Barilla in that, and in sourcing in Italy some of the core ingredients, which is another reason we do look a lot to Italy in our supply chain. It's obviously mission critical for the authenticity, but Barilla is the most amazing partner we could possibly have to help us to do that.
It's interesting. I recently met Tom Elliott from Pizza Pilgrims, who again, like you, is very vocal that if we are making a true Neapolitan pizza, then our products have to do. And they've done a lot of work to suggest, when you really get into food, Miles, that sometimes if you buy correctly and buy it the way, it's actually better bringing it in from another country, because you've got the provenance and the authenticity as well to go with it.
Exactly. Everything is a compromise, and customers will tell us whether we're getting it right or not. But the biggest risk to any food business, of course, is to compromise on the quality and the taste. And you just can't. Again, the scale of you can get buffalo mozzarella in the UK. There are people running buffalo herds in the UK. Yeah. It's amazing, but it's tiny and it's expensive.
That's the problem.
The complexity of the nature of the UK environment. It's potentially it got a bigger carbon footprint anyway, but you just can't get quality and scale. And when you get to a size operation that we are, you need both of these kind of things that are Italian staples. You really need to be going to where the Italian staples are made.
There's a reason, isn't there? It's very interesting throughout the whole of the chat. You've referred quite warmly, and I'll tell you the reason for this, to seeing or taking investment as just a means to an end to grow the business. Because I've spoken to lots of entrepreneurs who will do anything and everything not to have investors, to keep all their equity and grow it that way. Obviously, I'm assuming it's because of your background, but you've seen that as a very natural bedfellow to get the business to where you've got the ambition with the two other co-founders too. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think it was right there when I first met Alessandro. It was a pitch deck that he was showing me, a draft of that, saying first page says team. I've got this gap here. So somebody to do it with. First learning from the last business is I don't want it just to be me. So that was always part of it. I think what we see as the biggest single reason not to bootstrap it is the time that would take. We think this is a really great idea. Our customers seem to agree. So if you take too much time to pursue your great idea, the person that comes in and copies you and scales it up quicker steals your line. What we've done is we've made sure we are not only delivering the brand experience, the dining experience we want, but we scaled it to a level that we've got 50,000 people plus eating our pasta every week. And it's really important to take advantage. So that was why we were very committed to, we'll take the outside investment and, as you know, in the end, in the economics, make the whole pie much bigger and therefore make our share of it more valuable.
It is, and it's that argument against passion and emotion. It's where people talk about the business being their baby, that you realise that becomes, I think, a limiting factor in their growth eventually.
Yeah, I think again, it helped. I'm a consultant. I've worked in the city. Alex is a banker. We understood the process, and the other thing strategically we also understood well that other than building the scale and the brand recognition, there aren't a lot of sustainable competitive advantages you can make in food. We're not writing a piece of software creating IP. We're not creating a marketplace with marketplace economics where it gets very sticky like the London Stock Exchange. Food businesses, it's very difficult to have a unique, I can go home and spend the time, and I have, making Heston Blumenthal recipes.
Yeah.
It is possible to mimic all of these things. So the way that we've locked in our competitive position, it was always about creating the brand and the relationship with the customer and delighting them. And if you do that enough, the person who wants to come and can mimic you, well, you just don't get the same airspace. Is there the same need? And then when we now have our own production to scale up. Well, the next person that comes and says, we want to do this, you can't build a business case that says, oh, well, we're going to have 100 pasta restaurants, because, well, you've got to acknowledge, given from where Pasta Evangelists are, they're going to have the majority share. So even if you do a great job, maybe you can have half as many
that first mover advantage. Yeah.
How much can I therefore afford to invest in production if I've only got that many outlets? So by moving fast and scaling up, we've started then to create some of the benefits of being the preeminent provider. And others have, we've had people copy the idea of the recipe kit business, but it took a lot longer than we expected. It took about 3 years for the first copy of that. We had a copy of the delivery model be set up and was actually really widely available because it was done by somebody who also owned dark kitchen space. So that point was quite worrying when that has. The food was pretty good, but there was a flawed execution. What you perhaps don't always give yourself credit for is the execution of these things. Again, to achieve the customer delight really has to be thought on and really focused on. And so this pasta hot delivery competitor was making pasta at one moment and a chicken burger at the next, and a burger the next, and a kebab the next. And we spent a lot of time and a lot of training and continual training to explain to our teams in our restaurants and kitchens, this is how you cook the pasta perfectly. And for delivery, it's different because the pasta, cooks whilst it's been.
I was about to say, when it's warm, it'll keep cooking, won't it?
It keeps cooking. So we cook for different times for delivery and dine in the restaurants. And we've tested and we design our meals and our pastas around both delivery and restaurants. So there's a huge amount of knowledge in it. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to be really dedicated to it. So when this competitor actually at face value set anything up, but they were trying to get their team to do all these things, operationally, they just couldn't work, just couldn't generate the right. Because you can't compete with somebody who's getting 4.7, 4.8 star ratings for their food by not being a specialist. Being a specialist is a critical part of that.
Brilliant. I love it. I've realised we've gone so into this. I'm loving it. I've got 2 more questions.
Okay.
I'll get told off if I don't ask the first one. Well, actually 3. Sorry. First of all, your best-selling dish. Which one is it? Which is the best-selling pasta and sauce?
I can joyfully give you a different answer to that than I would have done even when we first
hot
met.
Off the press, hey? Yeah.
When we first met, I would have said carbonara, and it's been that way since we listed the carbonara, spaghetti carbonara specifically. Yeah. But that's recently been overtaken by bolognese.
Really?
So we didn't have a bolognese listed. We were saying, well, there's a theory amongst there's a popular myth, but may well be a lot of truth to it, that everybody can make 5 dishes because you've got 5 days of the week, so you rotate through those.
Your old spag balls in there.
One of those 5 for everybody is spaghetti bolognese. So, well, bolognese does not really correlate with our brand. So we didn't have bolognese. We did some consumer research led by our product team end of last year. One of the elements of that research, they asked an open-ended question to the customer: what is it you can't see? What aren't you getting? So unprompted, 70% of customers said bolognese. So we said, well, we probably ought to listen to the customer.
The customer is always right.
Grab nervousness aside. So what we did and what I've shifted it, they created an amazing bolognese.
Yeah.
I remember we sat down and said, no, the first planning was, well, classic bolognese, pork, beef. Oh, well, hold on. Well, is how many billion people in the world don't eat beef? There's how many billion don't eat pork? Do we really want to have both in? So no, we'll make that decision to make it authentically Italian. They've even put in a recipe where they introduce pancetta, so it creates this, and they render the pancetta at the start of the recipe. I'm probably giving away too many trade secrets here, but it just, when you taste it, you get that, you understand why they make it with pork and beef, and you get this taste. And so we've really thought about how do you make it a really special. That's the Pasta Evangelist magic we put in. We've really thought carefully about and trialed to get this thing right and have a really good bolognese, because it's got to smash it, because everybody has their version of
exactly. If you're gonna have a classic, it's got to be the classic.
But right. It has indeed proved commercially the right call.
Well done.
70% of customers were right. Well done. Well done to all of them.
Yeah, what do we know as experts in this field, eh? I love it. And what's your favourite dish?
My favourite dish, sadly, my favourite dish has been removed from the menu. Commercially ruthless times.
Do they not know who you are?
So my favourite dish, and also the favourite dish I remember when we did tasting of the head of the director of operations for the whole of Barilla globally. He said, that one, Chris, that's the winner. It was a crab and chili ravioli, a round ravioli. We did it in a black pasta to represent the seafood. That's a traditional way that seafood, I'm sure people have had seafood pasta with the black spaghetti and the clam de vongole. And it was just a wonderful fusion, crab and chili. Really, really smashed it. But whether it's a bit too niche, it's the top end of the pricing scheme. Black, I don't know, especially if you're seeing and shopping through an app. Is black food something that people really go after? So that one, at least for now, has been parked and put back in the let's improve. But that for me was our.
I'm sure you can still rustle it up at home on an evening, Chris. No problem.
Get my pasta machine out with the kids. Exactly. The black pasta is a bit of a mess, bit of a cleaning exercise afterwards. But that's not a bad idea, actually.
I love it. There's tonight's project for you, Chris. I absolutely love that. That's been fascinating. And we're going to have to put a warning when this goes live not to listen to it around lunchtime, otherwise you'd be absolutely ravenous.
Dinner times. Well, exactly. Dinner time's better. All the way through to 3 o'clock in the morning.
Perfecto. Right. I love it. I will be sampling today, and I'll give you some reviews. But thank you so much for your time, Chris. It's been brilliant to hear the story, and congratulations on the journey so far.
Thank you very much for having me. Really enjoyed it.